Imagine, like, looking at your calendar for the upcoming month right now, just picturing it in your head.
Oh, which, usually induces a little panic for most people right off the bat.
Right, exactly. But imagine if, I don't know, some glitch in the system suddenly deleted 80% of your obligations.
Wow. Just totally wiped clean.
Yeah, completely wiped out. The meetings, the dinners, the favors you promised to do, the projects you volunteered for, all of it.
I feel like my heart rate is actually going down just thinking about that.
See, that's the thing. Would your first feeling be blind panic about falling behind, or would it be this overwhelming secret wave of relief?
I mean, for most of us, if we're being really honest, it would be massive relief.
100%. And today, for this deep dive, we are exploring why the ultimate flex in adulthood isn't actually about how much weight you can carry.
Right.
It is about how much you are, completely willing to walk away from.
Because we operate under this immense, basically invisible cultural assumption that building a successful life is an additive process.
Yes, like an accumulation game.
Exactly. It's the video game completionist mindset. You have to collect the degrees, hoard the job titles, gather this sprawling social network.
And say yes to literally every single opportunity.
Right, because a blank space on your calendar is treated like, well, like a moral failure.
Oh, totally. Like you're doing something wrong if you aren't busy.
We basically equate maturity with having a perfectly balanced, endlessly spinning array of plates.
And we wear the resulting exhaustion like this twisted badge of honor.
We really do.
But our mission today is built around a source text that takes that entire accumulation narrative and just shatters it.
It really flips the whole script.
It does. We are looking at a profoundly striking excerpt from a text in Van Ben Duc Dan, and it's a piece titled, Knowing What You Want is a Kind of Maturity.
It's such a great title.
Right. And our goal is to unpack this really dense philosophical meditation on intention, energy allocation, and the true definition of adulthood.
Because it argues that maturity is not about acquisition at all.
Not even a little bit.
No, it is fundamentally an act of subtraction and extreme selectivity.
Which is so refreshing. And the text identifies a very specific, almost universal pivot point in a person's psychological development.
Yeah, the opening lines hit really hard.
They do. It reads, there comes a time in life when you stop wanting everything.
You stop chasing every opportunity.
You stop trying to please everyone. You stop saying yes to things that make your heart feel heavy.
I want to isolate that specific phrase for a second. The things that make your heart feel heavy.
Yeah, let's get into that, because that is not just a metaphor.
Exactly. It's not about being slightly annoyed or inconvenienced by a task. It points to a literal, visceral, somatic response.
Like a physical reaction in your body.
Yes. Think about being at your desk and your phone lights up with a specific person's name. Or, an email drops asking you to join yet another steering committee.
Oh, I know that feeling so well.
Right. Before your prefrontal cortex even has time to read the words and analyze the request, your chest actually drops.
Your breathing gets shallow.
Exactly. That is the heavy heart.
So what is actually happening in our bodies when that happens?
Well, what you were describing is the somatic nervous system acting as an early warning mechanism.
An early warning system. I love that.
Yeah, the body often processes the truth of our emotional capacity long before the conscious mind is willing to accept it.
So our bodies know we're too tired before our brains do.
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
When we talk about a heavy heart, we are talking about a cascade of physiological reactions. The vagus nerve actually registers a threat to your energy reserves.
Wait, really? A threat?
Yeah, your body is basically screaming a warning at you. It's calculating the energetic cost of saying yes to this person or this project and determining that you simply cannot afford it.
But here's the wild part. For the first 2 or 3 decades of our lives, we completely ignore that physiological alarm bell.
We push right past it.
We push past the physical heaviness in our chest and we type out, sounds great, count me in.
And hit send.
And hit send. We chase the opportunity anyway. If our body is fiercely rejecting it, why do we override that system so consistently?
It really comes down to evolutionary biology and this deep-seated fear of scarcity.
Scarcity, like we're not going to have enough.
Right. Early in life, or during any major transition, like moving to a new city or starting a new career, we don't yet have internal metrics for our own value.
Because we're still figuring things out.
Exactly. We don't fully know who we are yet.
Okay.
So we outsource the determination of our worth to the external world.
We look around to see if we're doing okay.
Right. In evolutionary terms, being invited to participate even in something that's totally draining means you are part of the tribe.
And being part of the tribe means survival.
Exactly. We say yes because a primitive part of our brain believes that if we decline this opportunity, another one will never appear.
Like we'll be cast out to fend for ourselves in the wilderness.
That's exactly how the primitive brain processes it.
So we treat every single invitation like it is the last helicopter out of a disaster zone.
Yes, the accumulation phase is just a frantic survival mechanism.
It makes me think of an analogy. Chasing every opportunity when you are young or insecure is like being dropped into an endless, incredibly luxurious buffet.
Oh, this is a great comparison.
Right. You're starving and you have never seen food like this before in your life. So you grab a massive plate and you just start piling absolutely everything onto it.
You take the prime rib, but you also want the sushi
And the dim sum.
and the heavy pasta and the salad.
Yes, all of it.
Yeah.
And eventually you pile it so high that the gravy from the prime rib is soaking into the sushi rice.
Yeah.
And the vinaigrette from the salad is making the pasta totally soggy. You have successfully acquired everything.
You won the game of accumulation.
But the resulting meal on your plate is just this chaotic, unappetizing disaster. The flavors completely clash.
You can't even enjoy it.
No, you are no longer enjoying the food. Your entire existence at that table is just reduced to managing the overwhelming pile of incompatible items you acquired.
The chaotic plate is just the perfect visual representation of the life built on saying yes to everything.
It really is.
And the transition the text describes, the maturity of stopping the chase, is the moment you finally realize that the buffet isn't going anywhere.
It's still going to be there tomorrow.
Right. And you don't actually have to eat everything available to be nourished.
So maturity, in this sense, is walking into that exact same endless buffet, looking at the thousands of options and completely ignoring 95% of them without a second thought.
Just walking right past them.
And ordering the exact, specific, beautifully composed meal that you actually want. And crucially, not feeling a shred of guilt for the pasta you left behind.
Which, I have to say, requires a monumental shift in how you process validation.
Oh, massive.
You have to pivot from a mindset of external validation, proving to the room how much you can balance on your plate, to purely internal validation.
Where you just know what you need.
Right, where you know exactly what your specific nutritional requirements are, metaphorically speaking, and you are entirely content with meeting just those.
But the moment you actually do this, the moment you put down the massive plate and start ignoring the rest of the buffet, you run into a very aggressive external problem.
Society does not like it when you stop playing the accumulation game.
They really don't. The people who are used to you saying yes to everything tend to react quite poorly when you suddenly become highly selective.
They absolutely do. Because the external world relies heavily on your indiscriminate compliance.
Your lack of boundaries is basically a resource for other people.
That is a perfect way to phrase it. Coworkers rely on you to take on the extra work. Friends rely on you to absorb their emotional venting.
And when you suddenly withdraw that constant, frictionless availability,
The people around you feel it as a profound loss of a resource they felt entitled to.
and the text actually anticipates this exact friction. It explicitly clarifies what this sudden withdrawal is not.
Right, it gets ahead of the criticism.
It states, not because you are cold, not because you have given up. And it adds, knowing what you want is not selfish.
The author is providing intellectual armor for the reader here. They're preparing them for the inevitable guilt trip.
Because it's coming.
Oh, it's definitely coming. When you start asserting boundaries and declining invitations that make your heart heavy, the immediate defense mechanism of the external world is to pathologize your behavior.
To make it seem like there's something wrong with you.
Exactly. They will interpret your new boundaries as a character flaw. They'll say you have become hardened, arrogant, apathetic, or cold.
Or, if it relates to career ambition, they will assume you have simply given up and lost your competitive edge.
Right, like, she didn't volunteer to organize the retreat this year. She must not care about the team anymore.
Or, he stopped coming to the optional Friday networking drinks. What a snob. He thinks he's better than us.
Because the external world is only judging the act of your withdrawal. They only see the closed door.
They don't see the reason for it.
Right. But the text asks us to center the intent behind the act. The withdrawal is not born out of malice toward others. It is born out of a newfound understanding of oneself.
As the text explicitly states, it is because you finally understand yourself better.
Yes, it separates the boundary from the concept of surrender. Giving up implies defeat against an external force. This is a strategic, highly intentional retreat designed to preserve the core self.
Okay, but I need to push back on this philosophy for a second, though.
Sure, go for it.
If a listener takes this text as absolute gospel, is there not a very real danger of misusing it?
How do you mean?
Well, how do we ensure that we are actually stepping into a place of profound self-understanding rather than just using this beautifully written sentiment as a highly convenient excuse to dodge difficult responsibilities? Or to just isolate ourselves or become genuinely toxically selfish?
That is a really fair point. It is the inherent risk of any philosophy of self-preservation. It can easily mutate into self-absorption if it's unchecked.
Right, it becomes an excuse.
But the text actually provides a built-in metric to prevent this. It says, knowing what you want is not selfish. It means you have learned what gives you peace.
So how does that define the difference?
Well, selfishness, at its biological and psychological core, is an extractive behavior.
Extractive, meaning you're taking something.
Yes, it is the act of taking resources, time, or energy from others to serve yourself at their direct expense.
Okay, that makes sense.
What this text describes is entirely different. It is protective behavior. It is the conscious decision to stop allowing your own energy to be needlessly extracted by others.
Extractive versus protective, that's a huge distinction.
It really is.
So, using our buffet analogy, selfishness would be sneaking into the buffet and stealing food off of other people's plates so you have more.
Exactly.
But the maturity this text describes is just putting a lock on your own front door so people stop walking in and taking your food.
That's exactly it. And furthermore, genuine self-understanding rarely leads to total isolation.
Right, because you still want connection.
Of course. If you are using this concept simply to hide from the inherent friction of human existence, you aren't finding peace. You are just avoiding life.
Wow, yeah. Finding peace versus avoiding life.
True protective boundaries actually create the capacity for deeper, much more authentic connections with the few things and people you consciously choose to engage with.
Because you actually have the energy for them now.
Yes, you are clearing the static so you can actually hear the signal.
Which perfectly brings us to how we actually identify that signal. Because the source text doesn't just leave us with vague, airy concepts about finding peace.
No, it gets very practical.
It provides a structural framework. It breaks this new maturity down into 4 highly specific metrics. It states that this maturity means you have learned 1, what gives you peace, 2, what drains your energy, 3, who truly matters, and 4, what kind of life you no longer want to live.
This specific 4-part structure is honestly a masterclass in philosophical balance.
Because it's not all positive.
Exactly. We are conditioned by modern self-help culture to obsess exclusively over positive framing.
Good vibes only, right?
Right. We are constantly told to find our passion, visualize our dream life, and identify our ultimate purpose, which places a crushing amount of pressure on finding the perfect positive answer.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
But notice how this author uses what philosophers call the via negativa, the negative way.
The via negativa.
Yeah, it is the epistemological practice of defining or describing something by establishing exactly what it is not.
It's like the Michelangelo approach to sculpture, right?
How do you mean?
Like, you don't try to build a statue out of nothing. You take a massive formless block of marble and you systematically chip away every single piece of stone that is not the statue.
I love that, yes.
What is left at the end is the truth. The statue is always in there.
And the via negativa is often vastly more accurate than positive prediction, especially when dealing with complex systems like a human life.
Why is that?
Because we are terrible at predicting what will make us happy 10 years from now. But we are incredibly accurate at identifying what makes us miserable right now.
That is so profoundly true.
The text elevates the negative framing to an equal, if not superior, status. Knowing what drains your energy and what kind of life you no longer want to live are presented as the essential prerequisites to finding peace.
It is so much easier to declare with absolute undeniable certainty, I know for a fact I never want to work for a micromanager again.
Or, I know I never want to commute 2 hours a day in heavy traffic again.
Right. It's so much easier to say that than it is to say, I know exactly what my ultimate dream job looks like. You just start eliminating the things that cause the heavy heart.
And by eliminating those things, you engage in a profound form of energy mapping.
Energy mapping. Let's dig into that.
Well, look closely at the specific vocabulary of the text. It does not mention time management at all. It focuses entirely on energy. What drains your energy?
Because time is a fixed democratic resource. Every single person gets 24 hours in a day.
You can easily map out a perfectly color-coded schedule on your calendar.
But energy is highly volatile and entirely subjective.
Extremely subjective. You can spend 30 minutes having coffee with a deeply negative, complaining person and feel like you just ran a mental marathon.
Yes, you are completely depleted for the rest of the day.
Conversely, you can spend 6 straight hours working on a project you are deeply passionate about and finish feeling completely invigorated.
So true. So traditional time management is merely the act of fitting obligations into a spatial grid.
While energy management, which this text advocates, is the far more complex science of ensuring you actually possess the psychological and physical capacity to execute the life you have scheduled.
Because you can have all the time in the world, but if your energy is compromised, the time is useless.
Exactly.
So if you are listening to this right now, think about how this applies practically. Conducting this kind of energy audit is like buying a beautiful, historic house.
Okay, let's hear this analogy.
You move in during the winter, and despite running the furnace constantly, you are freezing, and the heating bill is astronomical.
Right, something's broken.
If you only focus on the positive metrics, the what gives you peace and who truly matters, that is the equivalent of walking around the house trying to find the rooms where the sunlight streams through the windows.
Hoping the sunbeams will warm you up.
Exactly.
Well, the sunlight is pleasant, but it is fundamentally incapable of heating the house when the sun goes down or a storm rolls in.
Right. To actually fix the house, you have to bring in a contractor with a thermal imaging camera. You have to excessively hunt down the negative metrics.
You have to find the leaks.
Yes, you search for the drafty windows, the missing insulation in the attic, the cracks under the foundation where the expensive, precious heat is actively hemorrhaging out into the winter air.
Wow.
That is the process of defining what drains your energy and the life you no longer want. You have to find those specific leaks and ruthlessly caulk them, board them up, and seal them tight.
Because until you stop the energy leaks, it does not matter how much peace or money or wonderful people you try to pump into the house.
The warmth will just bleed right out into the void.
You know, the tragedy of the modern human condition is that most people spend their entire lives desperately trying to buy a bigger, more expensive furnace.
Instead of just fixing the windows.
Exactly. Instead of doing the quiet, unglamorous work of fixing the windows, they try to out-earn, outwork, or out-achieve their fundamental exhaustion.
They think if they just get the next promotion or make a little more money, the heavy heart will finally go away.
But if you have foundational energy leaks in your life, a toxic relationship, a misaligned career path, a deeply ingrained habit of people-pleasing, no amount of external success will ever warm that house.
The systemic exhaustion will just persist.
It will.
Which perfectly sets up the most dramatic and, frankly, the most terrifying section of the source text.
Yeah, this part is intense.
It really establishes a stark dichotomy. Either you do the hard internal work of this energy audit, or a default mechanism takes over.
The default mechanism.
The text warns, when you don't know what you want, the world will keep choosing for you. People will pull you in different directions. Noise will become your guide. And you may spend years building a life that never felt like yours.
This is really the ideological climax of the meditation. It shifts from a discussion of internal mechanics to a stark warning about external reality.
And what makes this warning so chilling is that it describes a completely passive danger.
Right. It does not suggest that the world is actively malicious. There is no grand, organized conspiracy trying to ruin your life.
The danger lies in the fact that human society is just an opportunistic vacuum. Nature abhors a vacuum, and society abhors unallocated energy.
If you do not explicitly assert your own desires and define your own hard boundaries, the agendas, desires, and constant emergencies of everybody else will naturally rush in to fill the empty space you left behind.
It's like you're just volunteering to be absorbed by someone else's plan.
It really connects to the philosophical concept of mimetic desire. Have you heard of René Girard?
Oh, René Girard, yeah. Mimetic desire. We basically want what other people want, right?
Exactly. Girard argued that human beings do not inherently know what to desire. We literally learn what to want by watching what other people want.
Which is kind of a wild thought.
It is. When you lack your own internal compass, you become highly susceptible to mimesis. You adopt the desires of your coworkers, your family, or the culture at large, simply because those desires are present and visible.
It is the equivalent of standing in the exact center of a major transit hub, like Grand Central Station, during peak rush hour without having bought a ticket or chosen a destination.
Just standing there.
If you just stand there, loose and undecided, you won't stay in the center for long. The sheer physical momentum of the crowd rushing toward the tracks will eventually push you onto a train you never had any intention of catching.
And before you know it, you are miles away from where you started, traveling in a direction you never consciously selected.
Your calendar will fill up with other people's priorities if you do not fill it with your own.
Your financial resources will be absorbed by cultural expectations if you do not actively allocate them. And the text identifies the ultimate consequence of this passive, mimetic existence.
Spending years building a life that never felt like yours.
Yes, it is the deeply unsettling phenomenon of waking up at 45 years old, sitting in a kitchen you don't particularly like,
Preparing to commute to a job you merely tolerate.
surrounded by social obligations you actively resent.
And having a moment of sheer panic as you ask yourself, how on earth did I get here? I never explicitly chose any of this.
You didn't actively choose it, but by failing to define what you didn't want, you passively accepted it. The world simply handed you a default script, and you read the lines.
But the author uses a very specific word in this section that I really want to talk about. They write, noise will become your guide.
Yeah, noise.
I wanted to ask you about that exact phrase because it is a fascinating, almost paradoxical statement. How does noise function as a guide?
What do you mean?
Well, by definition, noise is supposed to be the chaotic element that distracts us from the guide. A compass points north, but noise just disorients you. How can static take the wheel?
Ah, I see. It speaks to the neurobiology of attention. In the complete absence of a clear, strong internal signal, the human brain defaults to tracking the loudest external stimulus.
The loudest thing wins.
Think about how a school of fish or a flock of birds navigates. They aren't following a map. They are reacting millisecond by millisecond to the immediate sensory input of the fish or bird right next to them.
So it's pure reaction.
When you lack internal clarity, your cognitive processes become entirely reactive. The noise doesn't guide you toward a meaningful destination. It guides your immediate reactions.
So it is a guide that leads you on an endless, chaotic series of detours. You are constantly moving, but you are never actually traveling anywhere.
Exactly. And in our modern context, the noise is highly weaponized.
Weaponized how?
It is the relentless, algorithmic scroll of information telling you what political outrage you should be feeling today. It is the immediate, urgent, but fundamentally unimportant demands of a disorganized manager.
Or the cultural megaphone constantly redefining what success looks like.
Right. Telling you to buy a certain car, live in a certain neighborhood, or achieve a certain aesthetic. When you don't know what you actually want, you just follow the loudest ping on your phone.
The algorithm literally steps in to serve as your central nervous system.
That's a terrifying way to put it, but it's true.
If you log into a streaming service and you don't know exactly what you want to watch, the system will just autoplay the most popular, noisy piece of content.
Right.
If you open a social media app without a specific intent, the feed will auto-populate an opinion, a desire, or an anxiety for you to adopt. The noise becomes the default operating system.
And following the noise guarantees perpetual motion without a destination. You will be exhausted, but you will not have progressed.
Which is why the author's prescription, the methodology they offer to escape this fate, is so radically counterintuitive to the nature of the problem itself.
It really is. The text provides a very clear four-step prescription to avoid the tragedy of the borrowed life. It reads, so take your time, listen deeply, be honest with yourself, choose slowly, but choose clearly.
Pay attention to the intense contrast in the pacing of the language here.
What do you notice?
Well, look at the vocabulary used to describe the problem in the previous section. Chasing, pulled, different directions, noise.
Right, very fast words.
These are all words that evoke high velocity, chaos, extreme friction, and anxiety. The fundamental nature of the problem is speed.
We are sprinting through that buffet, terrified they're going to run out of shrimp.
Yes, exactly. But the solution the text offers is entirely grounded in extreme deceleration. Take your time. Listen deeply. Choose slowly.
The profound insight here is that you cannot solve a problem born of speed with more speed.
You cannot out-hustle the noise.
You cannot out-optimize the chaos. The only way to regain control is to forcibly stop your own momentum so the noise can finally settle.
But why is honesty with oneself inherently linked to slowness? I think a lot of people assume that if you ask someone what they want, they should just instantly know. Shouldn't true desires be right at the surface? Why does it take so much time, to be honest?
Because the brain utilizes two entirely different systems of thinking. Daniel Kahneman famously categorized them as System 1 and System 2.
Right, thinking fast and slow.
Exactly. System 1 is fast, instinctive, and emotional. System 2 is slower, more deliberative, and more logical.
Okay, how does that apply here?
Our rapid-fire System 1 answers about what we want in life are almost entirely composed of socially conditioned scripts. If I ambush you and ask, what is your ultimate career goal?
Yeah.
Your fast brain will likely spit out the answer the noise trained it to give.
Like continuous upward mobility, a massive salary, a C-suite position.
Yes, that is the default answer that gets you nods of approval at a dinner party.
Right, it sounds good to other people.
But if you want to get to the actual truth, you have to bypass that conditioned performative layer. You have to sit with the question long enough for the initial socially acceptable answers to burn away.
You have to activate the slower processes.
You have to ask yourself, wait, do I actually want to manage 50 people? Or do I just want the social status associated with the title?
Oof, that's a hard question.
Does the day-to-day reality of that promotion actually bring me peace? Or does the mere thought of it make my heart feel heavy? Answering those secondary questions requires a level of deep, introspective listening that physically cannot be rushed.
Because the fast answer is always just the noisy answer.
Exactly. Clarity is rarely a sudden lightning bolt of cinematic epiphany. It is a deliberate, unhurried, often incredibly uncomfortable process of excavation.
It makes me think of trying to tune an old, vintage analog radio. You know, the heavy wooden ones with the physical dial that you had to turn manually with your fingers?
Oh, yeah. The ones that required an incredibly delicate touch.
Yes. The noise and the pulling of the world that the text describes, that is the loud, harsh, screeching static between the stations. It is blaring and chaotic.
Right.
When you are operating at high speed, frantically twisting that dial back and forth, jumping from one opportunity to the next, one social obligation to the next, all you hear is deafening static.
You can't make out a single melody.
But the methodology in the text, listening deeply, choosing slowly, that represents the incredibly delicate millimeter by millimeter turning of that radio knob.
You have to move it so slowly, you are practically holding your breath, just feeling for the slightest change in the frequency.
Exactly. You lean in closely, you turn it a fraction of a hair, you actively listen past the roar of the static, and then suddenly you lock into a perfectly clear, crisp station.
The music comes through without any distortion.
That is the clarity the text is promising, but you can never, ever find that precise frequency if you are whipping the dial back and forth. You have to choose slowly.
And once you find it, you choose clearly, meaning you take your hand off the dial, you stop searching.
And taking your hand off the dial perfectly sets up the final lines of the text.
It really wraps the whole philosophy together.
Having walked the reader through the exhaustion of the chase, the necessity of boundaries, the danger of the noise, and the methodology of slowness, the author delivers their ultimate thesis.
They effectively redefine what it means to be a fully realized adult.
The text concludes, because maturity is not about having all the answers. Sometimes it is simply knowing what deserves your energy and what no longer does.
This conclusion feels like a massive collective exhale. It is an incredible release of psychological pressure.
Because from the time we are children, we are implicitly taught that growing older means figuring everything out.
The cultural archetype of wisdom is the omniscient sage on the mountain who holds the correct answer to every conceivable question in the universe.
We carry this heavy, impossible burden, believing that one day we will finally arrive and understand the mechanics of the entire world. We think maturity is a state of total intellectual acquisition.
But this text completely dismantles that standard. It liberates the reader by downgrading maturity from omniscience, the need to know everything, to discernment, the ability to know what actually matters.
It loops beautifully back to the opening premise, doesn't it? Stopping the chase is not a failure to find the answers.
No, not at all.
It is the profound, quiet realization that the vast majority of things in the world simply do not deserve the monumental energy required to question them in the first place.
That is the core insight. Out of the millions of arguments, opportunities, dramas, and potential paths available to you on any given day, only a tiny fraction are actually worthy of your highly limited, precious energetic reserves.
You don't have to engage with everything.
You do not need to have a well-researched opinion on every geopolitical event. You do not need to win every petty debate on the internet. You do not need to explore every single career pivot that crosses your mind.
But this is where I think the text gets really challenging. While this redefinition definitely lowers the intellectual pressure to be perfect and know everything, it paradoxically raises the stakes on our daily behavior to an extreme degree.
Explain how it raises the stakes.
Well, if maturity is no longer about your biological age or your accumulated wealth or your vast encyclopedic knowledge, but is strictly defined by your minute-to-minute energy allocation,
Right, if that's the new metric.
then every single time we voluntarily engage in toxic workplace gossip, or every time we say yes to a draining social obligation out of pure guilt, or every time we spend an hour doom scrolling and getting angry at strangers online, we are not just making a mistake.
We are actively choosing immaturity.
We are actively choosing immaturity. We can't fall back on our age or degrees and say, well, I'm a mature adult, I just had a weak moment. The text holds us radically uncomfortably accountable.
Wow.
Our maturity is defined entirely by the boundaries we enforce or fail to enforce in the present moment.
That is a brilliant distillation of the text's hidden challenge. It transforms maturity from a static noun, a trophy you put on a shelf once you reach a certain age, into an active, daily verb.
It is a practice.
Every single time you reach out and twist that radio dial back into the static just to feel the rush of the noise, you are abandoning your maturity. The power and the terrifying responsibility lies entirely in your hands.
So as we bring this incredibly dense deep dive to a close, let's just trace the full arc of the journey the short text has taken us on.
We covered a lot of ground today.
We really did. We started in that universal place of profound exhaustion, the heavy-hearted chasing of everything, the overfilled plate at the buffet of life, driven by a deep evolutionary fear of missing out.
We moved through the critical realization that drawing firm boundaries and saying no is not an act of coldness or extractive selfishness. It is a highly protective, vital act of self-understanding.
We explored the absolute necessity of conducting a rigorous internal energy audit. Not just looking for the sunlight of what brings us peace, but obsessively using the via negativa to seal up the drafty windows of what drains our energy and the life we no longer want.
We faced the terrifying reality of the opportunistic vacuum. We acknowledged that if we do not choose our path slowly and deliberately, the mimetic algorithmic noise of the world will gladly step in and write the script for us, trapping us in a borrowed life.
And finally, we arrived at a liberated yet radically accountable definition of true adulthood. It is not about possessing all the answers, but possessing the ruthless discernment to know exactly what deserves our energy.
It is a complete paradigm shift from mindless accumulation to intentional strategic subtraction.
It is, without hyperbole, a functional blueprint for reclaiming ownership of one's own existence.
Absolutely.
So to you, the listener, we want to issue a challenge today. The next time you are doing something mindless like commuting to work, folding laundry, or washing the dishes, take 10 minutes and conduct a preliminary energy audit.
Just look at the reality of your schedule.
Look closely at your calendar for the next 2 weeks. Look at the unread messages on your phone. Look at the obligations you have agreed to.
And ask yourself with brutal, uncomfortable honesty.
Where is the world currently choosing for you? Which of these upcoming commitments are making your chest drop and your heart feel heavy right now? And where are the drafty windows in your life that you need to finally have the courage to board up?
Remember the prescription. Take your time.
Yeah.
Listen deeply past the conditioned responses.
But before we sign off, we want to leave you with one final, slightly provocative thought to chew on as you go about your day.
A little extra homework.
Exactly. Something that builds on the foundation we've established, but ventures into the complicated gray area of real life. The text beautifully defines maturity as the ability to clearly distinguish between what deserves your energy and what no longer does. It operates on the assumption that once you slow down and tune out the noise, the distinction between the static and the clear station will be obvious.
But life is rarely that clean.
Exactly. What happens when you do the hard work, you achieve this profound clarity, you strip away all the noise, and you realize that two things, which both deeply, undeniably deserve your energy, are in direct, irreconcilable conflict with one another.
Oh, wow.
What if a career calling that brings you immense, genuine peace requires you to move across the world away from a person who truly deeply matters to you?
That is the ultimate dilemma.
When the mimetic desires are gone, when the static is silent, and only the heavy, meaningful, profoundly true things remain on your plate, how do you choose between two right answers without breaking your own heart?
That is definitely the next level of the energy map for you to ponder.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We will see you next time.